is our first year at UMA, and we love it, and we love to spend every Sunday with all of you. I just graduated as a nurse last December, so I just started my job. I started my job in February, and I really, really, really love it because I can make a difference in people's lives every day. And so I lived in Michigan, and I was born in Michigan, and I actually met Emmanuel in Michigan. I was 3 years old when I met Emmanuel, so we were super, super young. Our parents actually met at church at a marriage retreat. So we grew up together, and our families grew up together, and we got to know one another really, really well. And but when I was 10, we had to move to Texas because of my dad's job. But fortunately enough, we have a ton of family in Michigan that we were able to go every year. And one summer, Amanda and I kind of started liking each other, and we just started talking, and we started talking, and then I came back, and then the following summer was when we actually started dating. And it was very, very great. We had so much fun, and our families were all for it, and just because they've known each other for so long. I was 3 and he was 6, so it was a long time ago. So it wasn't always the easiest. We had a lot of struggles, and the biggest struggle we faced was religion. I was raised Catholic, and I did all my sacraments, and we would go to Mass every Sunday, and just everything Catholics do. And it was good, but it was way different than where Emmanuel was. He was on fire with his faith, and I knew God, but I didn't really have a relationship with him. And Emmanuel, he did so much for the church, and he actually helped guide a youth group there in Michigan as well. And he was 18 when he first started helping out, and it was very hard because I wasn't at that place. And Emmanuel would help every time, when I was there for the holidays or the summer, I would spend summer in Michigan. He would drag me to it every single week. And I did not like it. I struggled, and I would be like, I don't want to go, but just because Emmanuel's going, I guess I'll go. And it was really hard for the beginning of it, and I didn't really know that it would impact me so much later on in the future. And that was the first struggle we faced, and then we had the struggle of purity. That was another one. Emmanuel and I had already talked about it, but personally, we had already agreed on it before we even dated that we decided we were going to wait until marriage. But when we came and we started dating, I think we kind of had to sit down and have that conversation. And it was kind of hard at first because I didn't really know his stance on it. But we prayed about it, and he wanted to stay here as well, so that helped a lot. And it was good, but it was very hard just because a lot of people would mock us just because they didn't agree on that, and they always told us, how are you having a relationship when you're not having sex? And many people doubted, oh, that's not possible. You can't have a relationship like that if you're in today's society. You're gonna have to have sex somehow. And it was just really hard to hear those words. And people would place bets of oh, you guys are gonna lose your virginity in blah 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 time. And it was just very hard to hear those words from your peers. So me and I challenged ourselves, and we're no, we're gonna prove them wrong that we can wait, and no matter how long it's gonna take, we're gonna prove them that we can do this. We're gonna wait. And thank God we did, but it was really hard. And then since I lived in Texas and he lived in Michigan, we had to do long distance, and we did long distance for about 3 years. And it was really hard, guys. It was so hard just because, you want to have some time with your boyfriend, and you want to, hug him and give him a kiss once in a while. But it was hard because, I would go in the summer, I would be there for, a month, and then I would come home, and then it would be, 3 or 4 months since I seen him. I would go, and he would come, or something like that. But it was really hard, so we had to be creative. And the time that we did spend together, it was really good. He made sure we had a lot of fun, and he did very, very good dates. Honestly, it was better than the movies because it was actually for real. He made sure I felt special, and he planned, he would cook dinner for me. One time he like in his backyard, he like set like the dining table, and he was like my waiter and like but cooking at the same time. It was so funny because like it was funny because like I was sitting there outside by myself for an hour, and he was like, I was like, I'm so sorry, dinner's not ready. It'll be ready soon. And it was just so, it was so funny, but it was so cute. Like at the same time, I was like, oh my gosh, like what time are we gonna eat? but it was good. Like he was like that. Like he tried his best to make me feel special and like just make me feel loved in all the senses possible. But even though we had a great time and we dated and we had a lot of love for each other, I decided to break up with him. Yeah. It was a decision that I had to pray about, really. There was something that I was doing that it wasn't okay. I was using Emmanuel's feelings to feel the void that I was feeling in my heart. I had a lot of struggles, and one of those struggles being that I had issues with my self-image. I believed that I wasn't good enough or I wasn't beautiful enough, and I really struggled with that. Emmanuel, I can see that it hurt him so much just because ironically that was his nickname for me. It was beautiful, and every time he would tell me, I didn't believe it. I was like, no, like it's not possible, and I would get really frustrated. I'm like, why are you calling me this? Like, no, I'm not. And I can see that he had so much pain whenever I would say those words. So I was feeling the void in my heart with Emmanuel, and because that void is still going to be there, I decided to break up with him, and I was filling that void with Emmanuel, but it was the void that I had because I didn't know God. I didn't know that God loved me. I didn't know God that He made me beautiful, and I was meant to be loved by God first before I could love someone. And I didn't know it at the time. So I took some time apart from dating. Since I broke up with Emmanuel, I decided that I wasn't going to date anyone. And that's when I truly believed that I allowed God to enter into my life. I would pray, I would go to adoration a lot. And it was very good because I found myself there. And I found that God loves me, and He knows that I'm beautiful. He created me, so I'm beautiful. And I could finally say those words, and like the first time I said it, it was in adoration, and I started crying because I was like, so long I've been trying to hear these words, so long I've been trying to believe these words, and I finally am able to truly believe them. So it was really, really overwhelming. And in that moment, I also was able to form that relationship with God. It's something that I'm very grateful that happened that way. But later on, I started praying more, and during this time, I would pray for Emmanuel. I would pray for his happiness, and I would pray for his healing because I know I did so much damage to him. And it was really overwhelming. And one time, I was just praying for him in adoration, and I was like, God, just guide me to where you want me to be. And I prayed for Emmanuel, and in that moment, God was like, hey, even if you guys are not over, you have to do something. I don't know what you're going to do, but you're going to have to do something. So I kept praying about it, and I finally got the guts to tell my parents that I needed to go to Michigan. We were supposed to go that year, and my parents were like, okay, well, we're not going this year, like, what are you going to do? So the only thing that I could afford was a bus ticket. So I convinced my parents to let me take a bus from Texas to Michigan by myself. I don't know how they said yes, but they did. I think it was God, honestly, because they knew how much Emmanuel meant to me and how much it meant for me to go. And just a little side note, when I broke up with Emmanuel, my mom started crying. She started bawling, and I was like, why are you crying? Like, you're supposed to support me. But she's like, is he such a good guy? You're not going to find someone like that again. But they eventually said yes, and I was able to go to Michigan. And I was very nervous because I had already talked to Emmanuel previously. And this was a surprise. He didn't know I was going to go. So when I finally told him, like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm in Michigan, like, he was like, where are you? I need to see you, blah, blah, blah. So we saw each other that same night, and I was very nervous because I didn't know what his reaction was going to be or what he was gonna say. And so I finally talked to him, and it was very surprising because he was very happy to see me. He didn't have any anger, any pride. Well, at first he tried to be like serious and like angry, but no, it didn't happen. Like a few minutes later, he was just like, okay, let's talk. And it was good. We started dating like a little bit after that, and I stayed the whole summer. But with greater love also came greater temptations. After we started dating again, I really knew in my heart that Emmanuel and I were going to get married. I didn't know when because I was 16 at this time. But I was like, one day I'm going to marry this man. Like, I don't know how, but we're going to get married someday. So we started dating, and our relationship was going well. But we also got very tempted very much. We started getting carried away with our kisses. We got a little too touchy. And that's when things started like, okay, we need to step down and just like, okay, what's going on? So every single time, we just felt very shamed, and there was a lot of guilt, and there was just a lot of feelings of like, okay, well, how did we get to this point? But every single time, we also went to confessions together. I think that was huge. I think that was something that we really kept us alive and really kept us as a reminder of like, why did we decide to stay pure, and why it's so important to just stay pure and like allow God to be in the relationship. And then, so as you can see, we were not perfect, and we're still not perfect. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way we view men. I think we create these expectations of like, men are supposed to be this way, and they're supposed to treat me this way, and I want a guy like this. And sometimes we create these expectations of like how society views them, or like what my best friend has a boyfriend like this, so I should have one too. But like, have you thought about like these things quickly fade away? Like they don't stay there. Like when Emmanuel and I first started dating, he was so tiny. Like he weighed like 130 pounds. Since we started dating to now, he's gained like 40 pounds. Like those things fade. That's just an example. Like, and I still love him. I still love him more than that day. So it's like those superficial things fade away. Like they're not gonna stay there. So I am guilty of that. I have viewed men specifically like superficial level, but once I decided to like ask God guide me and give me a man that I can see myself with and that you have sent me. Like until I did that, I really knew that God was going to send me someone, and it was great because I've known this someone for like since I was 3. But I just want you to pray about it and just allow God to just guide you and allow God to pray about it and just give you that man, not necessarily that man that you so desire, but the man that has those qualities. And a big thing for us is we've invited God since the very beginning. Everything we did involved God, and we allowed God to be the center of it. When Emmanuel asked me out, he asked me in the chapel where we met, like that same church where we met. And when he proposed, it was that same church as well. So it's like things like that, like we try to involve God, and like sometimes during our dates we would go to adoration before, or we would go to mass before, and then we'd go after dinner, or we would do something else. Like one of my favorites is we'd go adoration, and then in Michigan there's a lake where we would go all the time, and we'd pray the rosary there, and then we would have dinner like at the lake. So it was like things like that. If you involve God, like if you involve God, things are gonna work out. And things worked out for us. Even though we did long distance, and we did it for 3 years, like that is not easy. I look back and I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know what I could do now if I don't see him every day. So it's just like things like that will help you, and I think that's what kept us together. Like we would pray a lot, and like during that long distance, every single night we would end with prayer. We would talk, like we would do FaceTime, and every single night we would end with prayer. We would do like just a decade of the rosary, or we would just pray for each other, our intentions. So prayer is key, and like I said, if we didn't pray, we would have not been together right now. I think that's what kind of holded like our long distance together, because we would make sure God was part of it. And then we respected one another. I know I touched on how we decided to wait until we were married, but we respect one another as a person. Emmanuel and I are completely different. As you can see, he's a wild child. Like he's just all over the place. He makes everyone laugh, and I'm more quiet. But I think that's a huge blessing for us because we complement one another. And because we didn't really focus on our physical aspects of our relationship, we really got to know who we were as a person. And we truly knew how to, like, okay, like he likes to go, he's very outgoing, so I need to be a little bit more outgoing. Or he's like, sometimes like, I need to be a little bit more quiet like you. So it's like things like that, like you learn and you really get to know one another when you have that time. And with that, we were able to do more things. Like we would, one of my favorites was like when he decided to propose to me, he knew since my senior year. Like he knew because he gave me like a Build-A-Bear for graduation that was dressed as a nurse. And inside the Build-A-Bear, he put a note saying, "Will you marry me?" And he gave it to me after graduation. And he's like, "Take this to college." And I was like, "Okay, I guess." So I took it with me, and like 2 years later, a year and a half later, I went down there for Christmas break, and he's like, "Bring it with you." And I'm like, "Why do you want me to bring this with you?" He's like, "Are you gonna pay for extra luggage?" He's like, "Yeah, that's fine." So I brought it with me, and then he did a whole like scavenger hunt in Michigan. Special places were meaningful to us, like our first kiss, or like where we would go on dates more, or like there was where we really knew we wanted to start dating it was actually at a hospital, which was pretty funny because I'm a nurse. And so he did all this scavenger hunt, and it ended up being at the church. And then inside he gave me like, he included the bear, that the bear was sick, and that I needed to do surgery on it. So I had to open it from the back, and then the note was there. So like he knew he wanted to marry me a year and a half before. So just allowing God to really dive into your relationship, I think that's key. Like that's so important. And I think that helped us, and that helped guide us. And I just want to finish by saying that we need to stop using men. I feel like we use men to fill some voids in our heart that we think they're going to be filled, because I did this. And it's not gonna be filled. It's still gonna be there after 3, 2, or 4 years, like however you want to say. It's still gonna be there. You're still gonna feel like something is missing, and you're not gonna know what it is until you really allow God to fill it. So I encourage you to take some time just to pray. And if you are not dating, it's okay if you're not dating. I think it's beautiful when you have that moment to yourself, because you can truly find who you are. I know I did. I found myself, I was able to work on who I am, and I was able to view myself as a beautiful human being, which I struggled with so much. And I was able to fill that void with God's love. And until it was filled, then I knew that I was ready to start dating again, because I could completely love someone. And I think it's okay for you to do that, to take some time and just really prepare and pray about it, because God may be just preparing you for something greater. And just be patient and trust, and I know God will just bring you when it's the time. And for those of you who are dating, I want to encourage you to just take some time to pray about your relationship. Take some time to pray about your relationship, and just really allow God to come into the relationship. It's never too late. You can always make a difference. And I truly believe if you pray more, and if you try to pray, I know it may be hard. Like for me and I, it was so hard at first. We would laugh. We would crack up every time we would start praying when we first started, just because it's awkward. It is awkward. But after a while, we got used to it, and we were like, okay, we need to pray. Remember, don't forget we need to pray tonight. So just things like that, that's part of who you are now, and that's what we did. So I want to encourage you to pray, because it's going to make a huge difference. And then I just want to finish up by saying that Emmanuel and I have learned so much from each other, and we have grown so much. He encourages me so much to grow in my faith. There's something that I want to share with you. He tells me all the time, and he told me once, and then he forgot about it, and then I told him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I need to tell you that more." He said that he's like, "There's only one person you can love more than me, and that is God." And I took that to the heart, just because like whenever I knew something was going on, or whenever I was happy, or when I was sad, I would always call Emmanuel first. And he was like, "Have you prayed about it? Have you told God first?" And I would be like, "No." Then he would hang up on me. He's like, "Okay, go talk to God first, and then come and talk to me, and then we'll figure it out." So like he kept on doing those things, and like that helped me grow my relationship with God and my faith. So we encourage each other, and we trust one another. We trust God. We trust God with our plans. And I think our biggest goal as a couple, since we got married, was to guide each other to heaven. I think that was that's a very big goal that we are working on a daily basis. And I think prayer was a huge thing as well, and I just want to share a picture. So this picture was taken, it was at our wedding, and it was, you can pass it around if you want. It was after communion, and we were praying, and I think it was the only time I cried besides dancing with my dad, because I'm a daddy's girl. So besides dancing with my dad, that was the only time I cried, because it was so meaningful. Prayer was so important to us, and that picture captured it. And it was the first time we received communion as husband and wife, and it was just so overwhelming. And we still talk about it, and that's like sitting in our room. So that was very beautiful, and I just wanted to share that with you. So, like I said, we'll be praying for all of you for your vocation, and if you're in a relationship, and if you have questions, feel free to ask us. And like I said, we'll be praying for you. And thank you.